Okay, let's get the obvious joke about weed and food out of the way. If you smoke weed, you're gonna get the munchies, man. You're gonna just want to play games and eat nachos. You're gonna get lazy and gain weight. Now that we got that out of the way, we can try to take a more serious approach to this situation. Weed is becoming exceptionally more common across the world, but especially in the US. What once sent you to prison can now be picked up on the corner right next to your favorite restaurant. Well, depending on what state you live in. Regardless, marijuana's acceptance has grown dramatically, and it seems that everyone has an opinion on how this will affect our society as a whole. Some think all hell will break out. Some think we're all going to turn into hippies, and some think that nothing will happen. However, there is a relationship between weed and society that hasn't been questioned much, at least to a serious extent. That relationship is of weed and our health. Yes, the whole munchie talk is funny if not obvious, but given that obesity is rising dramatically and almost 40% of US adults are classified as obese, is smoking weed going to make this even worse? We mean, weed isn't exactly known for encouraging people to get up and go to the gym and count their calories. Or does it? How detrimental is weed to our waistlines? Now, if you think the only answer to this goes back to the generic reference concerning the munchies, you're going to be in for a big surprise. The assumption that many have with weed and food may just be nothing more than a punchline in movies. We'll show you how you can still partake in this herb while maintaining a slim waistline. That's of course assuming that you live somewhere it's legal. First, what is weed? Being the popular slang for marijuana, weed is the most popular illegal psychoactive drug in the world. Its use is steadily rising, and the only reason it will lose this title is simply because it stops becoming illegal. Originally being cultivated in Central Asia, weed production can be found just about anywhere in the world, all the way from Thailand to Mexico to your neighbor's son's bedroom. Weed actually comes from the cannabis plant, particularly its buds, which are effectively the entire flowering head cannabis, made up of stems, stalks, bracts, and flowers. These buds are harvested and then consumed, usually by being smoked, but may also be eaten. Either way, upon consumption, the real magic takes place. Inside weed are hundreds of compounds known as cannabinoids, with the most popular being THC or tetrahydrocannabinol. While not all of them are, many of these cannabinoids are psychoactive. THC is the primary psychoactive cannabinoid and has the greatest effect. This is why you get high after smoking weed. However, there's also another popular cannabinoid used by many and is more commonly known as CBD, sometimes sold as an independent compound such as CBD oil. Unlike THC, CBD is not psychoactive but can still produce relaxing sensations, making it of interest for those looking for a slight therapeutic effect. When ingested, these cannabinoids interact with what's known as your endocannabinoid system, which is part of your central nervous system. It helps regulate many different physiological and cognitive processes, but researchers are still learning a lot about this system and its exact functions and mechanisms. Why? Well, the endocannabinoid system was just discovered in the 1990s when researchers were exploring the effects of THC. Since then, we know that the endocannabinoid system does a lot, such as controlling appetite, mood, pain perception, motor control, cognition, and even fertility. Keep in mind that this is just a short list. So while we don't know everything, we can see that there are several areas that could affect your diet and fat loss, or fat gain. In fact, we actually have studies that smoking weed can help with your weight. Research using marijuana has evolved over the years as its therapeutic effects have ultimately been realized by the medical community. A large area of interest is examining how weed could benefit patients in a medical setting, particularly cancer. Patients with cancer and receiving treatment are notorious for losing an unhealthy amount of weight. This drop in weight can cause a patient to become weak, as well as weaken their immune system. It can further cause problems on top of the cancer and the cancer treatment. To combat this, doctors have experimented with using medical cannabis to help improve the appetite of the patients. Now, the good news is that using cannabis does in fact show promise as an effective method to improve the appetite of patients. Now, that is definitely awesome. However, that's not so great for the obesity dilemma that the West is facing. So, what's going on? Well, the primary cannabinoid that makes you hungry is the infamous THC. Remember that this is the same THC that is responsible for getting you high. Can we take a moment and ponder why that is? Why is it that everything good comes with a negative? Why can't THC just suppress our hunger and everything would be awesome? Okay, we'll stop there as now we're just ranting. But be sure to stick around as we're going to tell you what cannabinoids may actually decrease your appetite. So anyways, the truth is that the high we're looking for is caused by the same compound that makes us hungry. Why is this? Research has actually shown more than one mechanism by which this takes place. The first has to do with a hormone known as ghrelin, also known as your hunger hormone, as it increases your drive to eat. Under normal conditions, secretion of ghrelin is good and triggers our appetite and lets us know we need to eat. However, where this becomes a problem is when we're already full but it continues to secrete, driving us to eat more. As you could guess, this is one of the mechanisms by which weed works. Not that we need scientific research to tell us that weed makes us hungry. Studies have firmly established that consumption of weed results in THC interacting with the endocannabinoid system, with one effect being an increase in appetite. So weed increases a hormone. That doesn't seem totally horrible. It's just a single hormone, right? Nope, there's more. Unfortunately, that's not the only way weed can turn you into a ravenous madman. Just kidding, it's not really that bad. But there are other things going on, like up your nose, specifically in your olfactory system. Your olfactory system is the sensory system that controls your smell. It's a complex network of various structures and processes that allow you to detect odors, both good and bad. Now, you may be thinking you're getting hungry, not wanting to blow your nose. What does smell have to do with eating? A lot, like a whole lot. Research suggests that your smell is responsible for 80% of taste. If you think about it, we will naturally pinch our nose when eating something we don't like. We can also look back at COVID when people lost their sense of smell. For many, this also took away their appetite. Unfortunately, marijuana doesn't shut the olfactory system down. Rather, it revs it up. In fact, oftentimes, those who partake will say that food tastes better after smoking. You may have just chalked this up to them being high, but in fact, food really does taste better. But they're high as well. Oh yeah, it also makes you seek out sweet foods. Now, if you thought we were done, remember that that is just the effect of THC. Keep in mind that marijuana has more than 100 different cannabinoids. Now, not all of these increase your appetite, but some do. For example, there's one known as cannabigerol or CBG. Research has also shown it too is an appetite stimulant. However, it doesn't make you high, making it an interesting compound to look at for medicinal use, but is really only useful if you want to gain weight. We could go on, but yeah, you could say smoking weed increases your appetite. Actually, now knowing all that, we think saying weed increases your appetite is actually downplaying it. Geez Louise, but that's not all. As we know, nutrition isn't the only variable that can determine weight loss or weight gain. Activity levels also play a large role, and increasing daily bowel movement has become a popular tool for weight loss. Unfortunately, marijuana use is often associated with increased laziness. You smoke weed and want to binge on Netflix. But is this perception true? Well, the answer is not as clear as you would think. For example, results from the 2007 to 2014 National Health and Nutrition Examination surveys show that both current and past marijuana users are less likely to report moderate and vigorous recreational physical activity compared to those who have never used. In addition, higher frequency of use correlated with lower time exercising. This makes the answer seem pretty obvious. Marijuana decreases physical activity, which would result in more fat gain. However, other research suggests the opposite. For example, in 2021, a large review was released that suggests marijuana users are just as likely to engage in exercise, if not more likely. In fact, they state, "Our overall conclusion is that the commonly held perception that marijuana users are largely sedentary is not supported by these data on young and middle-aged adults." What do we make of this? It's actually hard to tell, as these studies say very different things. Perhaps it's just the specific variables that skew the results. Regardless, there is good news from this confusion, well, kind of. This variance shows us that we can't simply assume that smoking weed is automatically going to make you sit on the couch all day. While we can look at the effects of marijuana on a person all day, what really matters is what happens in real life. Let's try and look at some studies that have researched the outcomes of smoking weed and fat loss. One interesting study examined the effects of enforcing medical marijuana laws on society. When medical marijuana becomes more available, it can have a large effect on not just marijuana use, but the general behavior of people as well. With conventional wisdom, one would think that more weed and more people smoking weed would result in more obesity. However, this is not what happened in the real world. This study found that once these medical laws were enforced, it led to a 0.3% to 0.6% decrease in BMI scores and a 2.1% to 6.0% decline in obesity. How could this be? The reality is there are a lot of interacting factors that could have influenced this. Being able to smoke more weed will affect other areas of life as well. For example, if marijuana was easier to obtain, people may choose to stay home and smoke rather than drink at bars. As we know, drinking in bars often leads to heavy drinking and eating large amounts of food. If smoking at home prevented this excess consumption, it could ultimately have a positive effect on weight loss. At the same time, research has shown that marijuana and alcohol are sometimes used as substitutes. When marijuana is easier to obtain, studies have shown a decrease in alcohol consumption. Actually, a large decrease of 10.6% to 25.2%. As alcohol is high in calories, a decrease would likely result in weight loss as well. These are largely theoretical, but fall in line with what is seen when medical marijuana laws are put in place. Regardless of what specific mechanism controls this and why it occurs, it again clearly shows that marijuana being easier to get doesn't automatically result in an increase in obesity. Other studies that have specifically examined the effect that marijuana has on weight are underwhelming and inconclusive. After looking at all of the effects which marijuana has on our appetite, one would assume that there is a clear and direct relationship with a greater BMI. But as studies show, this assumption would be wrong, and in fact there is actually reason to believe that marijuana use among the general public results in lower weight. Large studies concerning the general public actually show that marijuana users have lower BMI. However, answers as to why this occurs remains elusive. This is especially confusing as studies have shown that marijuana use does in fact lead to an increase in calorie intake. We should note that this increase occurs due to snacking caused by the munchies rather than eating more during a single meal. Some of the theories behind this phenomena have been differences in acute smoking and chronic smoking. Perhaps you get the munchies when you first start smoking, but you learn to control this with more experience. Another theory is that marijuana use is often done in combination with other drugs. These other drugs could provide a suppressing effect on appetite overriding marijuana. Or perhaps this causes the brain reward sites to be sufficiently stimulated, eliminating the need to eat. In addition, some researchers theorize that marijuana may actually be a metabolic regulatory substance. As we have seen, marijuana use does increase the weight of low-weight individuals, specifically patients with conditions such as cancer or HIV. However, in normal weight individuals, it simply helps maintain weight. So what are you supposed to do if you like weed but aren't keen on gaining weight? Well, there's some good news here. Up until now, we have been discussing weed as if it's all the same thing. In reality, it's not. Marijuana refers to the plant, but there are many different strains of marijuana. Think about it like dogs. All dogs are amazing and awesome. Yes, we love dogs. But different breeds of dogs have different qualities. Some are hyper, some smart, some not so smart, some loud, some protective, some who don't care if a burglar walks in your house. But they're all great. Therefore, you pick the dog that best suits your life. Well, different strains are composed of different amounts of all the various cannabinoids. Each of these cannabinoids have different effects on the body, giving these different strains different qualities. Now, what's interesting is that not only are there cannabinoids that don't make you hungry, there are cannabinoids that may actually decrease your appetite. In fact, one of the more promising cannabinoids that decreases appetite is also the second most popular, CBD. A large review consisting of 11 trials examined the effect which CBD has on not just appetite, but its actual effect on body weight. 7 of these studies reported a decrease in appetite, while an 8th study reported increased fullness in participants. Another cannabinoid which has shown to possess an appetite-suppressing effect is known as tetrahydrocannabivarin, or THCV. In fact, its properties seem to be pretty potent. Research has shown that THCV can not only decrease appetite, but can also increase satiety and increase energy metabolism. Heck, if you didn't know better, you may think we were talking about a weight loss pill. What's interesting is that it is suggested to be a clinically proven therapy for weight loss and management of obesity and type 2 diabetic patients. As we've learned, the primary reason that weed makes you hungry is in fact THC. Therefore, the best way to continue benefiting from this plant is to choose a strain that has less THC and more CBD, as well as THCV. Remember, it's being looked at to be used for weight loss in a medical setting. But there's actually another compound you'll want to look for: terpenes. Terpenes are a diverse group of organic compounds found in various plants and animals, but are particularly found in cannabis. In fact, terpenes are what give cannabis its smell and are often found in essential oils due to these properties. Research is still in its infancy with these fragrant compounds, but there is promise that they can aid with appetite control. In 2023, research found that 18 of 40 different terpenes possessed appetite-suppressing properties, which could help on top of what we have already talked about. Now, one of the benefits of more legality is that it has allowed growers to create different strands. Therefore, you can choose to buy various strands that will best suit your needs. To recap, we're looking for strands that are low in THC, high in CBD, high in THCV, and possess the right terpenes. Some of the more commonly suggested are Durban Poison, Jack the Ripper, Cannatonic, Doug's Varin, Harlequin, AC/DC, and Sour Tsunami. Mind you, we came up this list by cross-referencing various websites that specialize in marijuana and marijuana strains, so be sure to do your own research if you choose to partake. Perhaps just as important is to remember that weed itself has 0 calories, and it's only the food that's eaten due to munchies that causes weight gain. Therefore, be mindful of this before you smoke. Be sure to have healthy or healthier snacks around the house so you're ready for when the munchies set in. Snack on beef jerky rather than Doritos. Or maybe cook up some delicious sweet potato with a pinch, emphasizing on a pinch of brown sugar. Also, simply being aware of this entire issue may be enough for many people to deal with the cravings. Know what is going to happen and remind yourself you don't want to gain weight. So that handles the food part, so now let's discuss your activity levels. Simply don't smoke when you should be doing something. You may be better off working out in the morning to be sure you get in quality training and exercise before you smoke. At the same time, refraining from smoking during the day would lower the chance of becoming inactive. Stick to the evening as you settle down. We also need to remember that many people smoke regularly and stay active. Much of the perception that surrounds smoking weed and it turning you into a couch potato is just that, a perception and a false one at that, or a comedic punchline. Regardless, using marijuana is 100% a personal choice and should be used responsibly. And as of now, it doesn't seem you need to be concerned with gaining excessive weight.